in this episode what Kevin Keegan told Eddie Howe and Dortmund arrive at St James's Park. So final preparations being put in place for Newcastle United's next Champions League game in Group F against Borussia Dortmund. A Bundesliga side coming here unbeaten in the domestic league, but fighting for their lives to stay in the Champions League after a pretty poor start by their standards. Seasoned campaigners in this competition, so Newcastle will have to be aware of that tomorrow, but certainly the confidence here for Newcastle should be through the roof almost after another great win against Crystal Palace. Then I expect Newcastle to be desperate to get off to another good start in this game against Dortmund. Flying start, that's set the tone. And when I'm talking about flying start, I'm not just talking about Newcastle scoring goals, early goals. That would be nice, of course. It's snapping into those tackles. We've seen in the last game Dan Burn, Bruno putting in the tackles and jumping up and celebrating winning those tackles, and that's exactly what Eddie Howe will be looking for again in this game. He's going to meet the press here soon. We'll be bringing you some reaction to what he has to say, as will Sean Longstaff going up on the big stage at St James's Park to meet journalists from around Europe. So it's going to be an interesting one here today. We'll be reflecting on that very soon and hopefully have some team news for you for the big game tomorrow night. So Borussia Dortmund just about to go and train on the pitch here at St James's Park on the eve of the second Group F game here in the Champions League. Obviously the first one ended 4-1 to Newcastle against PSG, and Newcastle can really almost put a foot in the last 16 if they can beat Dortmund. They won't be there completely, of course. I think you need double figures points wise just to be sure, but they'll certainly put themselves in a great position if they can beat the team that finished second in the Bundesliga last season. If you remember, in Germany, it went right down to the last game of the season where Bayern Munich and Dortmund fought it out for the last for the trophy, and it ended up being Bayern Munich who won it. So we're going to watch Dortmund train here, see what type of mood they're in. Obviously it's a slightly different Dortmund team to last season, where they had Jude Bellingham as the main star, and he obviously went to Real Madrid. And Dortmund, while they haven't done too badly in the league, they are unbeaten, 6 wins and 2 draws. They are struggling a little bit in the Champions League. They've only got a point. They felt it was a failure for not beating Milan in the last group game at home. That game could cost them, could come back to haunt them if they don't beat Newcastle here. But look, the place is all set up for another special night for Newcastle. They'll know that this game can take them closer to their aim. We've just been speaking to Eddie Howe in the press conference, and his belief is simple. Every competition that Newcastle are in, he believes they should be there to win it. So Newcastle aren't here just to make up the numbers, never were. Eddie Howe buoyed after a night with Kevin Keegan in the city last night, where Keegan said he would come back to the stadium for one last hurrah if Newcastle can win the Premier League or the Champions League, and what an occasion that would be. How close Newcastle are to that's debatable, but certainly so far in this competition they've made a great account of themselves. They want that to continue. Talk in the press conference dominated by Tonali questions yet again. Tonali still not aware of his ban, how long it's going to be, when it kicks in. We'll have to wait and see, but for now it's business as usual, preparing for this game in the build-up. Whether there's a late twist to that, we'll have to wait and see. But Newcastle's certainly well stocked in that midfield area. Sean Longstaff was on the stage before the game as well. He had plenty of questions to face, coped with them very well. Spoke about how proud he is to be at this club, sort of pre-takeover and post-takeover, and he feels like these are the nights he dreamed of as a kid. Referenced the Flying High DVD, which a lot of people might have seen. If you haven't, have a look at it on YouTube. It's a great watch from the 2002-03 season. He now hopes that Newcastle can create some similar memories to that in the next few Champions League games. Look, if they can beat Dortmund here and pick up something on the road, they're pretty much into the last 16, and then they can enjoy the Milan game here and that trip to PSG. So we'll have to wait and see how things unfold, but certainly here is the stage. Newcastle behind me, Dortmund going through their paces on the eve of that big game against Newcastle. Won't be easy, but certainly one Newcastle go into with confidence after beating Crystal Palace here at the weekend in a 4-0 thrashing. If they can start that game, if they can start tomorrow's game the way they did on Saturday, then I can't see there being any problems. But I think Dortmund know this is going to be tough. Even their manager, referencing the war flags display, he came out before the press conference started and he had a look round and he mentioned it in his press conference what an occasion it's going to be, and that is a real compliment coming from the Dortmund manager, who's obviously seen some fantastic displays over in Germany, the huge Bundesliga games that they go through. So this is going to be a big occasion. It's already got that kind of buzz to it around the city going into the game. Dortmund fans arriving, the Dortmund team bus getting here today, and they're just on the pitch now, if you can see, getting ready to train for this big game tomorrow night. Can't wait. Doesn't feel that long ago that Newcastle were entertaining Barnsley, Preston North End in the Championship. We're now getting ready to host Borussia Dortmund, who are training right behind me. Plenty more of this coming up. So just leaving St James's Park on the eve of Champions League Group F encounter, game number 3 for Newcastle in the Europe's Premier competition, and yeah, very interesting to watch Dortmund training. A little glimpse of training, you only get 15 minutes of it, but one that is very helpful as a journalist, gives you an idea of the mood going into the game. And for Newcastle, they'll feel this is a good time to probably play Dortmund, because they are the team that need to win this game if they're to have any chance of going through. So they're going to have to take chances, they're going to have to overcommit. A point really isn't much good to them because it will leave them with too much to do in the remaining fixtures. And Newcastle, if they can get the win, then you know it will be them who are pretty much have one foot in the last 16 of the Champions League. So really interesting to see Dortmund training on the pitch. The two big names, Marco Reus and Sebastian Haller, who will be looking to cause Newcastle some problems tomorrow night. But there's just a real buzz around the place. I mean, just being in the city tonight, as you can see, anyone tuning in from abroad, there's a little glimpse of Newcastle by night going into this fixture. And yeah, I think for Eddie Howe, we spoke to him first. It was a mammoth afternoon, 4 press conferences, one after the other. Eddie Howe telling us how he believes his team are in a good place. I asked him about the last game against PSG, where Newcastle were snapping into tackles and he was celebrating that fact, and that really got the crowd absolutely buzzing in that opening stage of that game, and Eddie Howe telling me that he wants to create something very similar to that in this game against Dortmund, because that really set the tone, and that's what Eddie Howe was trying to do going into this game as well. For me, I think Newcastle, I've got a good feeling about Newcastle. It's something we're not used to, having confidence, having, been battered down the years. But look, Newcastle really go into this game knowing they're in a good position, they're in a good place. Everyone's playing their part in the team, everyone's doing well. The city is believing again. That's what Eddie Howe, needed to do when he came in as boss, and he's got the city believing again. He's got the fans absolutely jumping, and as I say, I can't see that problem replicating the PSG atmosphere. I can't see that being an issue, because quite frankly, the stadium's already set up. The flags are in place, the placards are in place, the stadium's already set up, and Newcastle know that this game could be worth a lot of money to them. Let's not forget that. It's all right winning games, but this could be worth a lot of money going into the winter. Newcastle are probably going to buy in the January transfer window again, and not least with the Sandro Tonali situation, which is going to leave them short of a midfielder for the best part of a year. So that's something on the agenda. But this team that Eddie Howe's building is just it's fizzing at the moment. Even the Dortmund manager making that clear in his press conference that Newcastle have spent, while they have spent money, they spend it wisely. They've spent about 400 million since the takeover. A lot of that was needed. There's no doubt about that, because Newcastle were a team threatened by relegation. But look, at the end of the day, Eddie Howe will feel now that his team, they can dream about it. They can dream about going into the next stage, and a lot more on top of that. You've got Carabao Cup games coming up, Manchester United away. You've got some huge Premier League games, which Newcastle, let's be honest, if they beat Wolves at the weekend, they're going to probably be in the title race. So they're certainly in the European race at the minute. So sometimes people might think we're getting carried away, but when you've spent that type of money, when you've got a manager like Eddie Howe, then you can believe again. And I think that's got to be the message going into this game. Let's have another famous night in the Champions League. Let's ensure that Dortmund come here knowing they're facing one of the big guns in Europe, and let's push on and get into that final 16 of the Champions League and make more memories after that.